Welcome all to another exciting edition of Victory Never Sleeps. Got a special show for you tonight. We have a variety of leadership from the Njörðshof District to, talk to you about a variety of topics this evening. And I think, the lineup may change and fluctuate as the night goes on. But yeah, it's going to should be a fun episode. These have been really cool. And I believe that folk builder Tracy Adler is going to join us at some point. I hope that she does, because doing these district leadership specific episodes was her idea. And I think it was kind of a cool one. So hopefully she joins us. That's the plan. Top of the show notes for folks. As always, if you like the program, please like, share, subscribe wherever you find it. We release it, it comes on live at 6 Pacific every single Wednesday on a lot of different sources, but it also comes out as a regular podcast on Fridays. Actually, a gentleman who's sharing the screen with me this evening, Gator Lane Ashby, is the guy that does that and loads those up. So you can talk a little bit about that audience with us later if folks are interested. This is a Q&A kind of show, not just tonight, but in general. So as always, we encourage your guys' questions and things you want to hear some of our amazing folks speak on. It can be stuff related to the Njörðshof District, the Hof itself, Asatru, or literally anything else you guys want to talk about. Coming up very soon, we have Freyr's Harvest Feast in Montana. I'm excited to be at that. It's going to be a really cool event. Some powerful pictures from that last year. It's a really neat spot, and I'm anxious to go to that. And that's going to be coming up on September the 20th through the 22nd. If you are interested, please reach out. Any of our folk builders can get squared away on that. Also, in October, we're going to have Winter Nights, our annual Winter Nights celebration for the first time ever in New Hampshire. I'm pretty excited about that. I have never been to New Hampshire, so I'm looking forward to it. Should be beautiful. Perfect time for, really get the full effect of New England fall. So I'm excited about that. I hope to see many of you guys there. Again, if you're interested, please contact Folk Builder. If you're listening to this and you are not a member of the AFA, why not? We would invite you to join us, assuming you are a heterosexual white person. We would love to have you with us on this amazing journey that we are on. We'd love to have you help realize all of the dreams that are manifesting around us. It's an exciting time, and we would encourage that. That brings me to something else I wanted to talk about on the top of the show. Talking with a number of AFA leaders, one of the things that I guess one of the biggest hurdles or things to address as far as membership growth and development is so many of our folk that should be here with us simply don't know we exist. So getting this message out as much as we can. That's why I ask you guys, if you like what we're doing, to, tell a friend, let folks know, share it. And in the current climate that we're in, sometimes some of the outlets we would normally use are not available to us. So we really count on you guys and word of mouth. But something that has been really effective that is available to us, and I figured I'd throw this out there at the suggestion of Whit and Cliff Erickson. This show itself has been a big force in, moving us forward and helping out with things over the past, what is this, 111 episodes, because I suppose this one's still left to be decided. But yeah, this show's been awesome. You guys as an audience have been amazing, and this has brought a lot of people home. So one thing that's really helped that was back for a time, we had a whole bunch of shorts every now and again. And the short video clips were really, really effective. And they drew a lot of folks' attention towards us to check us out, to come home. And they brought a lot of people home. So we're trying to do that some more, but we need y'all's help. We need some folks to help us in, constructing said shorts, but really and truly something that would be super helpful. And for anybody really that wants to, but specifically for folks that listen to or watch this show regularly, is if you guys can collect timestamps of, something you found particularly interesting or entertaining or something that you really enjoyed, those timestamps would really help us to get a bunch of those shorts made and queued up and ready to put out at various times to get in front of some more eyes. So if we got anybody that wants to volunteer to help with that, producer Nick is who you want to talk to. And Nick can put up his contact info, but nrice@runestone.org. And he'd love to have some assistance. But yeah, as always, we appreciate you guys. Last thing, and we'll get into kind of the meat and taters here, but we have new merchandise this week. We got gym stuff, this time Njörðshof themed. So ooh and ah over it because it's cool. Get yourself some, get them while the getting's good. And yeah, we appreciate you guys. And with that, I think everybody on our screen has been on before, but Nick, can you put up the graphic? And for those that can't see it, Jordan, can you tell everybody what all makes up the Njörðshof District? I think everybody knows we've got the Hof in Florida, but for folks that can't look on there, can you tell folks what states are in your district, please?
Yeah, of course. So in addition to Florida, where the Hof is located, we also have Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas.
But wait, what if we're in Njörðshof District and we're not in the United States?
Well, that would expand to South America.
And also South Africa for anybody that is interested. And the Caribbean, but we don't have any members in the Caribbean at this time. We do have a couple of folks in South America, though. So yeah, it's a big district. It covers a lot of ground, and there's a lot of different things that go on. I know the Hof gets a lot of spotlight. And just like I said, Tracy has joined us. There she is. Appreciate you being here, Tracy. For folks that haven't met our guests before, can you guys kind of briefly tell us who you are, where you're located, and what you do? And we'll start out, as it appears on our screen here. Gatha East.
Yeah, I'm Trent East. I'm a Gatha, as he mentioned. I've been an AFA member for 9 years. I'm in Northwest Georgia. Army veteran, 11 Bravo. And very proud to be a Gatha of Njörðshof. And that's pretty much it if we're keeping it brief.
We can for now. Hopefully some folks might have some questions or some interest later. We'll see if you are an interesting fellow or not. Next guy who is on a little bit less frequently. Tell us who you are, Lane.
I'm a Gatha as well. Trent and I joined pretty similar times. I joined in 2005 also. I've been with my company for 20 years, got a lot of anniversaries coming up. And in fact, I want to raise a glass to start off to my wife. This is the 20th anniversary of our first kiss.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. So those that may not know, and I want to get back with him and talk a little bit more about this later in the show, but Gotha Ashby here was extremely important in the decision on where to put Njörðshof. And also in those early days, he was kind of the point guy on finding property, on scouting stuff out, on running down all the little local logistics, on making it work. And he was a huge force in getting the Hof to become a reality, and not only to become a reality, but one in the Sunshine State. So we owe a lot of that to Lane. Continuing in a Sunwise motion, Gotha Mayo, tell folks about yourself if you would.
Yes, sir, I'd be happy to. I am Gotha Bodie Mayo, as most people watching and listening and looking know. I am from Southwest Georgia. My brother Gotha East is up in Northwest Georgia. So between him, myself, and folk builder Jordan there, we've got the state of Georgia, or at least this side of it, pretty well covered. I have been an AFA member, I believe, since 2012. Happy to be here. Happy to be of service to my folk.
All right. And then, gentleman who we spoke to earlier about the depth and breadth of the district, Jordan, tell people a little about yourself, where you're at, what you do.
Yeah, my name's Jordan. I'm a folk builder. I'm located just outside of Atlanta, and then I've been an AFA member 2 years as of this last July, and by day I'm an engineer.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, as I mentioned earlier, the lady whose idea it was to have this particular round of shows. Tracy, tell us where you're at, what you do, and a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, no problem. I'm Tracy Adler. I'm a folk builder. I think I've been a folk builder, I think, since 2022, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, at least as an apprentice. And I live in Florida. I'm kind of north of Orlando right now. I'm also a nurse, and I work the night shift, but I'm at home now, so that's good.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. I see over in the chat room is our law speaker. If he is able, he is welcome to hop on anytime he would like it, especially in this broadcast. But it's cool that he checked in over in the chat room either way. So that's something really interesting about Njörðshof District that is dissimilar to our others. We've got our highest concentration of Gothar in the Njörðshof District. I'm not going to sit here and try to math. Cool. So we got 6 ordained we got 5 ordained Gothis and 1 ordained Githya in the Njörðshof District. And that's a unique resource that the other districts don't have. Got some general stuff I kind of want to talk about tonight, but it looks like we've got our first question coming in. Oh, awesome. A subject near and dear to my heart. Olivia would like to know, could y'all talk about the Njörðshof Gator? What's his name, story, and favorite food? Lane, tell us about that gator. Lane, you are muted.
His name is Boots. We saw him. When was the first time we saw him? That was I want to say Ostara, or maybe the month after. But yeah, he's been there. He's been there every month since. So we've even seen him scoot around in the pond and attack a couple of the fauna that is sharing the pond with him. So it's a great mascot, and he answered your wishes.
Yeah, those of you that might not know about the layout of the property, it's it's deceptive because there's a lot of trees on a lot of the property, so it may not look like it's as big as it is, but it's somewhere about 5 acres. And there's a decent amount of land there. On it, there's 2 ponds. One's really prominent, you can see from the road up front, and another one out back. And I was assured by my wife, who is from Florida, that man, everywhere there's a pond, there's going to be gators. There he is. But yeah, we didn't have one there for a little bit. This guy took his time showing up. But I am, as someone who grew up in Alaska, I'm excited that we have gator at Njörðshof. So far, he is not getting into trouble, so that's a good sign. So as I see Pam, hi Pam, I see that she brought up over in the chat, it's been 2 years now since we've had Njörðshof. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has. So folks around the Hof, and there's a couple of you want to ask this. I guess starting with Lane, how is having a Hof different than, I guess, not having a Hof? And then as a follow-up, how is having a Hof different than you expected that having a Hof would be?
Well, from a logistics standpoint, we know where we're going to be every month. Before the Hof, it was crisscrossing Florida, trying to find places, particularly during 2022 with COVID. They would close parks with no notice, and we had to scramble. So that having that rock with which we know where we're going to be, everybody knows where we're going to be that third Saturday of every month. It's amazing.
Fantastic. And in what way is it maybe different than you expected, or has there been any surprises?
Maintenance. We're always finding things that need a little tweaking here and there, and we have to get in there and get it done. But we were fortunate. I know we have no place to complain. I know Baldershof had to go through a lot more to get ready and have a lot more hurdles than we have had. We've been very blessed with our building and our land, as you mentioned.
Well, on that, how old is the building?
The building was built in the 80s, I do believe. They had been running it up pretty much right up until we bought it. They were still holding services in there, and left us a ton of things that we had to get rid of: band equipment, drum sets, keyboards, and a plethora of tambourines that we had to clear out. But yeah, it's been amazing. It's the power that we feel going there, having that sacred space, not having to hollow it every time we go there, knowing that it's always sacred, even when we're away, knowing that we have that. I think it just amplifies everything that we do here in this district and in Florida particularly.
Fantastic. So, Trent, what have you noticed since you guys have a Hof down there? How has it made anything different? And is there anything unexpected that having a Hof has brought? Is it different than you expected in any way?
So for anybody who doesn't know, I was heavily involved at Fourth Hof before we got Njörðshof. So I was used to the Hof culture a bit. The biggest difference it's made here in the Deep South is apparently we have 20-something members in Georgia, and previous to Njörðshof, I thought we had 3 or 4. So it really does bring out more people, more members. A lot of people you see online will kind of complain about having Hofs. They'll say things like, nature is my church, etc. But no, in real life, when Hofs pop up, more members pop up and they attend things. And I've gotten to meet a lot of awesome people just because the Hof is there that I otherwise apparently would not have met. So that's the only real difference I've noticed, and it's a good one. So
I think that comment you made in some ways is, what do the kids call it these days? It's a cope. I think it's easy to rationalize. You always want to paint something as the brightest thing, and it's easy to like celebrate when you don't have nice stuff. But it's really self-evident that it's very special to have Hofs. And I've had some amazing, amazing times worshiping our gods and gathering with our folk in the woods and in parks and various other places. And that's beautiful. And there's a lot of cool stuff to it. But there's something very, very special about having temples to our gods. And I'm so very happy to be in a time where that's a thing. So, Bodhi, you've been around a little bit. You've been involved in Asatru for a long time. How is having a Hof? I don't know. What's the difference as you see it, or any difference you'd like to point out between those long days of not having a Hof and now having one? And then I guess, in what ways is it different than maybe you imagined it might be?
That's a polite way of saying I'm old. I'll share your Gothi. Thank you. Yeah, so Gothi East likes to, joke around with me about, tell me tales of the history of early 2000s Asatru. It was what we have now, and I know it can be quite an emotional thing for those of us in leadership, those of us like me who've been around a while, that all of what we have now 20 years ago seemed like a pipe dream. It seemed like something that we would never achieve. It seemed like something that we would always sit around and talk about. And the Australia Go that can tell you guys who are listening and watching that there are always people who said, man, one day we're going to have a Hof and it's going to look like this and it's going to be awesome. And we're going to get together and do all sorts of activities. But it really never came to fruition. But there were a certain group of people who said that's not good enough. And they put their heart, their heart and soul and their blood, sweat, and tears into making it happen. And it has been, for me, it has been what we always knew Asatru could be. We always knew that we were better than being relegated to state parks and to, campgrounds that we could rent with cabins and stuff like that. We always knew that we were better than that and that we could be bigger than that. And now we are. The way that I think it has changed that I didn't foresee or is a surprise is that it's a missing piece of the puzzle. We have so much to offer our folk, so much to offer them. And back before we got all of our Hofs, we didn't have this piece. We didn't have this piece of the puzzle because, people want to know where to go. They want somewhere to go. The number one question I get whenever people's like, oh, you're a member of a church. What church? I'm the Asatru Folk Assembly. Okay, what's that? And after all those are, all those niceties are satisfied, they will often say, so do you have actual churches? And I can say, yes. Yes, we do. We currently have 4. We're working on 5 and 6. And it's in large part to a lot of people. My brother Gator Lane couldn't have done it without him getting Njörðshof. There are a lot of people who are instrumental in getting all the Hofs. But it was the drive and determination and vision of the guy to my left on the screen there who kind of shepherded us into and making it happen. So yeah, that's the difference.
I didn't know Jordan was so influential in us getting the Hofs. No, I don't know if our screens and the little Brady Bunch thing are different there, but no, NIT is only because Jordan's come in newer than all that. But we've had a really great team, and it's neat when we get Hoff's places because each one of them has a different kind of story. You know, they're so I'm starting to get questions here backed up, and there's a number of them that I want to get to. First, before we do all that, Ronald Blake is back with $100 donation to our current folk services push to help one of our members' family. Thank you, as always, so much for your generosity. It is so very much appreciated. Anybody that may be tuning in for the first time or may not take note, Mr. Blake is a example to us all as far as generosity goes, and just steadily giving and helping people. And his contributions have helped a lot of folks. Also, G.W. Farnsworth, another very dedicated, generous soul, has got us 5 coffees. I think that's $25. We appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys that are willing to give and help us accomplish stuff that we're trying to get done and make this stuff happen. It's it's nice that we're at a stage to where a little bit can go a long way on making these things happen. It's one of those things that picks up momentum when we're getting Hofs, when we're walking in harmony with the way things ought to be, which is so much of the reason that the Rhytho rune is the symbol of our priesthood, is trying to get in the flow of the right way the gods want this thing that we do in this universe that we live in ordered. Really amazing things happen. A lot of blessings have come our way, and we're very appreciative. And sometimes those come in the form of you fine people in the audience. So thank you guys. What I was going to say is each Hof is real different. We got a relevant question coming up. Actually, we'll get this first, but remind me, and I'm going to get back to this. Before we get to that question that came up from Vril the Barbarian, Tracy, do we ever have anything like an open house for those who are interested?
Well, anyone who's interested and wants to come out to one of our Hofs, they could just reach out to one of us, one of the folk builders, and we could get that set up for them to where they can, accompany us to, to see like the Hof and see how things are done. If that is something that they would like to do. So it can be arranged, but it's not really like an open house, I wouldn't say. It's definitely not an open house, but it can be arranged that they can, see what we have going on.
That's important. It may sound silly, but just on a personal note, it's really cool to me when the first time I saw an AFA Hof on Google Maps, like people are asking for directions. There's some, it's funny. And like I said, it may seem, trite or insignificant, but it's neat to be able to tell folks like, no, just look it up on Google Maps. It'll get you right there. And the little blue line will take you right to the Hof. There's something that just feels very official about that. And I think that our people have just known our struggle to get these things happening and to get a physical place for our folk and, more importantly for our gods in Midgard. It's neat to see that be a very real thing. So I say that to say this, it's there, it exists. You guys can all find it. They're not hiding and they're not going anywhere. Folks are welcome to stop by and say hi. Anybody listening, anybody in the community, and we have folks in the community to stop by. So anybody knows where we're at and is welcome to stop by and say hi and folks can kind of show you around and whatever. If we have a worship service going on, then that may be abbreviated, and we're doing something as a folk together. But we also, all right. So I will do this. A lot of stuff stacking up. I thought of a lot of things I want us to talk about tonight. Lane, can you tell us a little bit about the food pantry that goes on there? What is that? How long has it been going on? What does it look like? If folks are just hearing this fresh, what does a Njörðshof food pantry look like?
Njörðshof Food Pantry is doing well. We fed 70 families at Freyfaxi and 5 pets with our Feeding Pets of the Homeless partnership as well. And that's something that we've just started. We've actually been doing the Fed Food Pantry since I do believe our first month. We did not do it at the dedication, but our first month event, we had the food pantry up and running.
And that's so important. We had so any of you fine folks, you are welcome to Google us either right now or later. Not always the best things show up because media's fake news going to do what fake news does. But understandably, sometimes folks in a community have questions or concerns or whatever. What's been really, really nice within that first month, there was a number of members of the community there that had questions or concerns, and they were very polite about it. And we were setting up times for me to talk to them and address those. And as soon as we had that first food pantry, those completely disappeared. We had folks in the community mildly concerned / curious for 3 weeks or so, and then they found out very quickly who we were, and any of that concern has, at least from where I can see, evaporated. And that's a question that is coming into us. How well has the Hof been welcomed into the local community? Tracy, do you want to address that, or how does that look from your point as far as how well we're accepted in the community?
Well, I don't think there was really that much doubt about us being accepted in the community because we do have a lot of, like Lane was saying, we feed a lot of members with the food pantry. Every single time that we do have a food pantry, everyone is, very excited and accepting of, us being there. And it's almost like they miss us when we weren't there, the previous weeks and stuff like that. And it looks like, to me that everyone's really, really excited that we just got lucky because it looks like everyone's really excited that we do what we do. And, we're just proud of who we are. And, we accept them. And it's just been working out really, really well.
Trent, how many local families would you say is a usual quantity that we end up feeding at our monthly food pantries there?
It's kind of grown over the last year or so. I don't remember the numbers starting out, but I know it was 54 a couple months ago, then it was 63, then it was 59, then it was 72, I think, and then 70 this month. So for an average, I would say 60, but that's based on me not remembering the earlier months numbers.
That sounds about right. So Lane, you mentioned, well, actually, while we're on this, because we have another question about it, and I think it kind of follows up. Raven asked, what challenges Njörðshof faced in serving the local community, and how have they been overcome to ensure that it remains a hub for our Asatruars? So if you have more to add on that, feel free to address it, but I'd also kind of going along with it. I don't know who interacted with it the most that month, but I guess, Lane, would you like to tell talk about the time that the community reached out to us because of, I believe, a hurricane that went through. Do you recall
Yeah.
that? Were you on point with that?
Yes, they did, and we held a special. We got together and held a special pantry just to help with that. In fact, this last pantry, one of the reasons we helped so many was because of the storms hit Jasper really hard, and they were without power for more than 8 days and lost a lot of their food because of that. So people were coming over from Jasper, and we were helping them out this time as well.
So I'm going to come right back to you here in just a sec, Lane, but it's always such a great opportunity, and also a great, I guess, sign of how things are going when the community itself reaches out to us for help and support, because we've shown a willingness to participate in local charity and an eagerness to be a part of the community. And so, we've had that at a couple of our Hofs, but it was very meaningful to me that the local community asked if we could do, an extra food pantry that month, and really wanted to connect folks with us and trust us to, be a source for helping out folks in the area. That, I think, that speaks volumes for us and for the folk we have there representing us and being our face in that area. And just for our deeds over time, I'm really very proud when a local community wants our help. And I was going to say, with that, Lane, we've been reached out to recently. You mentioned feeding some pets. Can you talk about the organization that reached out for our help with that, and kind of a little bit about what that's about?
Absolutely. Yeah, the organization is called Feeding Pets of the Homeless, and they take donations to feed dogs and cats of people that are without a home and having trouble feeding their pets. They also take monetary donations and will help with vet bills and like. But we've been collecting food now for 3 months and passing it out for 2, and it's been very well received. A lot of the families actually will come by and when line up and have their pets with them. So they're very excited to be able to help feed their animals as well.
Anything exotic in those pets?
Not yet. Not from just from our members.
Are you keeping them well away from boots?
Yes. We need a sign, don't feed the gator.
I've been, when I was down in Florida bouncing at the place I was working at, I remember we'd have guys come by with like parrots, and a guy came by with some kind of big constrictor that, get some exotic pets in the state of Florida. I'm sure some exotic owners as well. So one thing I was going to ask you, Trent, you mentioned that you'd been very active at Fourth Hof. For folks that don't know, it kind of is equidistant from where Trent's at. Fourth Hof there in Linden, North Carolina, and now Njörðshof in White Springs, Florida. Each Hof's a little bit different. What do you see as differences between stuff at I guess the Hof itself, the feel of it, the atmosphere, the folk, the stuff betwixt Fourth Hof and Njörðshof?
So Njörðshof, thanks to Gator Lane, already had a kind of a thriving local community that already met up very often and had their own ways of doing things, and a successful way of doing things, I will add. And Fourth Hof, on the other hand, Witten Spawn and Witten Young had to build that area up from scratch because the previous folk builders just were not as good at their job as Witten Young was. And so that had to be built up, and we were able to kind of shape and mold that area into this sort of Dixie True, as Whitten Young calls it, a kind of Southern piety that it resembles the local Christian church culture in the way that all the folk there take it very serious. And we have that at Njörðshof as well, but it was a little bit of an interesting situation when we got Njörðshof, because we had myself coming from Fourth Hof and Gothi and Githya Plord coming from Baldershof, and we had to sort of strike this balance of, you know, hey, all these people from different districts are coming to Lane's Hof essentially, and we have to not step on each other's toes and insert each other's Hof cultures into this new Hof. And it was a little tricky, but we ended up able to really, you know, use what Lane had already sort of built the infrastructure of and turn it into its own culture. As far as interesting things that Njörðshof has that other Hofs don't, pretty much equally pious people that love our Aesir and our folk, except they show up in flip-flops on occasion. That's the only real difference nowadays.
Good deal. So kind of question for all three of our Gothar on tonight from Rachel. With so many Gothar at one Hof, how do you decide who leads which bloats? What a wonderful amount of talent you guys have. So and that's kind of an interesting thing. I mentioned the benefit of having so many Gothar in one area, but also it's an interesting challenge because, you know, that's not an option a lot of spots, and you guys have quite a bit of Gothar in comparison to the, I don't know, rituals and stuff that needs to get done. So how do you guys figure that out? Bodhi, that counts the hand raise. How do you guys figure that out?
We have this arcane system where we all get together and we quite honestly, we have our own back channels where, you know, Go the East being the Hof manager and whatnot, says, all right, you guys, events are coming up. Who would like to do this one? Sometimes Lane will say, I would really like to do this one if it's okay with the rest of you guys. So just a lot of brotherly and sisterly camaraderie and just spreading out the division of labor evenly. You know, when Trent or myself can't be there, or if Lane can't be there, then we just pick up the slack. I mean, you know, many hands make light work. We try to be brother and sister Godar to each other and help each other out and spread the love and spread the wealth. I know that we all talk about how getting to do bloat is one of the best. Oh, Kitty, I have ADD. Sorry. One of the best parts about being priest of the Aesir is that we get to do bloat. It is a responsibility of ours to our people, but it is a responsibility that we take much joy in. I know I can speak for all three of us that we take much joy in it. And, you know, we have said amongst ourselves that, you know, if I believe Whitten Young said this, if there's ever comes a day when I am not excited / nervous to do a bloat, then I should probably stop. And I don't think that I ever will, because I always get excited / nervous every single time. And it's not a bad nervous. It's a, you know, wow, you know, I want to do the best job for you guys. I want to be the best Gothi I could be. I want to do my best Gothian in front of my folk, of course. And it's just, it is one of the greatest privileges of my life that I get to do this. So anyway, I hope that answered your question.
You know, another interesting thing, you know, any of our Gothar are fully qualified to do a bloat to any of the Aesir, but they're different. And I think that the way a Gothi does a bloat to a goddess is different than the way that a Githia does. I think the way that a Githia bloats to a god is different than the way that a Gothi does. I think that an old, well-seasoned elder Gothi does bloat in a different way than a young prime of their life on the come up Gothi does things. And it's neat to be able to have that pool to choose from. And I think it's relevant in what the folk see as far as bloats go. As we mentioned, Githia Anna Plurge, she's there and she can, there is a Githia present. So if they need a Githia to do a particular ritual, that's available to them where it's not everywhere. But also something that I think is less seen and maybe the folk don't notice until they're in a moment of crisis, but the different, certainly the 3 men you see in front of you, I mean, shoot, anybody can call me. So 4 men you see in front of you, but also those that aren't here that minister to our folk there. There's a deep well of experience that helps in terms of counseling and in terms of helping our folk work through the challenges in their life. And you have people with a wide range of experience, both in their own lives and also in counseling our folk from so many different vantage points that it's a real strength that district has. And certainly any of our members are, we'll do whatever we can to set up the very best Gothic counseling from, across the AFA. We live in a world where we can do that. But on hand locally, we've got some really, really powerful forces in that counseling there available. So that's a real benefit that district has. So Jordan, Metal for Life wants to know, will you have anything going on in San Antonio, Texas?
San Antonio, at the moment, I'm not familiar with any moots scheduled right there, but certainly point well taken of where the interest is in hosting a moot there, and I can certainly pass it along. Don't know why we couldn't.
So for anybody listening, this is kind of I suppose a good time as any to bring it up. A lot of people wonder about that, and they see area that they wish there was more activity. And they're like, man, why isn't there more stuff going on in my area? And there was a time where there were 0 things going on in any area. And the way that it moved from 0 to something was most often one guy just starting out, or maybe one gal just starting out and saying, hey, I wish something was going on. How can I help? And one of our, existing leaders saying, cool, this is how you can help. Let's make it happen. And that can be anything from volunteering to folk build to just simply being willing to host something. Even to having one of these fine folks in front of you here, like Jordan, say, hey, Jordan, I'm in San Antonio. I'd love to have something happen. How do we do this? Well, if you're a member and you want to have something happen, the best way to do it is, hey, where's a cool place to go in town that's fun? I like to have a beer over here. Great. Let's have a moot there. You want to have a beer with so-and-so at Billy Bob's Tavern on 5th Street. Cool. Can you be there at, next Friday at 7? Cool. Let's do it. And then our folk builder can help you advertise, can help get other members in your area there. But having that point person in the area can be such a huge catalyst in making stuff happen. And that's why, it's funny. We talk about the age of Hofs that we live in and, this grand Hof to Njörður that we have. But that's because some different people at different times in the state of Florida said, hey, how about we get together and do something? And it's because Gothi Ashby here, but well before he was a Gothi, was like, hey, let's get together and do some bloats on the beach to Njörður. Let's do that and build that consistently over time. So a lot of these things start from really small seeds and build up. Question about San Antonio. We got quite a few people lots of people in Texas. I will tell you, I'm glad that you asked about San Antonio instead of El Paso. Lot more of our folk tend to be in the eastern half, middle to the eastern half of the state, I'd say. I was just looking at our map. We got a member in San Antonio. We have a cluster of members up a little bit closer to Austin, but that's still a decent drive to get to something in San Antonio or even meet somewhere in between. So we can absolutely make some stuff happen there. And, I know folks see the interest on here, and it's kind of the idea to maybe see if we can get something like that going. But it's really important I know we get going and we're talking a lot about the Hof, and most of the people on the screen here are in Florida or very close to it or in an adjacent state, but it's a wide district. And one of the things about Texas is we're really waiting for it to take off. Texas is a very promising place for a future Hof. It's kind of at the far distant reaches of a bunch of different districts, but it's far enough away from a Hof that it's really a strategic point that we would love to have a Hof in. And there's been a lot of talk about perhaps Braggie's Hof being in Texas, but time will tell, and we're looking forward to doing that. But it's definitely an area that is vibrant. There's tons of interest, and we really want to see some good things happen in. Next question is for Gothi East, Lane, and Bodie. Could you share an event or ritual at Njörðshof that made a significant impact on an attendee or group, perhaps leading to a profound experience or an awakening? In the order that they asked. Trent.
Hopefully every ritual, every bloat, sumble, meal, prayer, hopefully everything has a profound effect on all of the attendees. But there's various ones that all of the Gothar here on the screen, as well as the Plords and the Law Speaker, have done, where somebody's come up to us or to them and thanked them for the experience with tears in their eyes, or saying they really needed that. Every bloat has that effect on someone in some way. I don't really have any specifics for you that I can think of at the moment, but every bloat that I've attended at that Hof, or any Hof really, I've seen someone, come away from it with that, like, wow, this is real. I'm really doing this. This is great, look in their eyes.
So, Lane, let's see if you can redeem this here. Can you think of any specific instances occurred at that Hof that has caused an awakening or a profound experience? You are once again muted.
The last dish here, bloat by Githia Ford, was amazing. That they always are, but I think that one was particularly special. A number of people within our community had lost members of their family that year, and it really hit people and everybody came together. I'd like to add it. It's not limited to bloat. I think sumbles at our Hof have been some of the most amazing, moving coming together of our folk that I've ever seen. It's powerful in a different way than bloat, but I think it is every bit as important.
Excellent. And as anybody who's listened to this broadcast for any amount of time knows, DC bloats have been some of the most profound experiences of my life. So those are really, really powerful. anybody who doesn't know or isn't familiar, the Disir are the spirits of our dead female ancestors that look on and care for us after death. And it's a really powerful time to reconnect with, mothers, grandmothers, great grandmothers that maybe haven't felt that connection in quite that same way in a long time, and can be a really special thing. Bodhi, is there anything that you can think of that's occurred at Njörðshof that has caused profound experience or awakening?
Let me take I'll share a Gothic. So
You had two people in front of you to think of something.
I know, but we're all a fan of your Gothic. So yeah, thinking about my answer, sitting here, there have been a lot of things. Just seeing all of us being able to be Godar in the Hof has been a very good experience. I had an experience with one of our members. He was going through some tough times, and hope he doesn't mind me. I'm not going to name him, but I hope he doesn't mind me sharing because it was very awesome to me. One of our guys that's a regular down there he was going through some stuff. He had some family loss and whatnot, and he was just, he was there at the Hof and he was present, and he was doing what Go the East has always told our folk down in Njörðshof, like, when you're going through it, don't turn away from the folk, turn into us, come into us, like as a group and a family, and let us help you. So that guy, that member, he was standing out in the parking lot and he was just going through it, and he wasn't having a very good time, even though he was trying to. And I just went out and talked to him, and he was talking about wanting something to read that would really buoy his spirits. And so I just went over to my car and got my copy of The Spear, because he said he didn't have one, and said, here you go, because I can always get another one. And so he later told me that was one of the best things that could have happened in that moment for him. And I was just being the nice, lovable guy that I always try to be. And it paid off. So that was great.
So it's, I'm glad, first, any cool experience that you were going to relate that was profound or causing awakening would have counted and been awesome. But it's nice to highlight that it doesn't always have to be a bloat or any grand ritual. Sometimes the moments of awakening can come from a very, very simple interaction. One of the biggest things, I think it's a really important point, and I did see Trent's hand. I think he might have thought of something. But I would get to you. What I was going to say is, it's amazing when our Gothar are able to facilitate and be part of making that happen. And it's our job to do as much of that as we can to the best of our abilities. And sometimes we do through ritual, sometimes we do through counseling. Sometimes it doesn't come through us, that part of that equation. It's strange, and I say this on here, and I don't say it to be aloof or anything. It's sometimes it's really hard to explain. We view the world through the lens of our experience. And you mentioned, an awakening. Once you've been fortunate enough to have that experience where you've encountered the divine in that way, you can't really go back. And I can't argue it to anyone here. I can't, debate you into a spiritual epiphany. But when it happens, and then once you know, you can't unknow. But I don't say that as some kind of strange gatekeepery way of dealing with stuff. But when you go to a Hof with a open mind and an open heart, and you are I wouldn't, because if you go thirsty for it, I don't think you get it. It's if you go open to it, some really beautiful things can happen. And sometimes it's facilitated by a Gothi. Sometimes it's a member. Sometimes it's, just Njörður himself. Sometimes it's something that you happen looking at the mural or in a quiet moment by yourself. You're in a holy space and holy things happen there. And so it's really neat to see that and to hear about that and to be able to celebrate when that happens to one of our brothers and sisters. Trent, what did you have?
So the first charming of the plow that we had at Njörðshof, Gothi Plord and Githya Plord had COVID, and so they opted to stay home from the event, which we appreciated, even though we missed them. And so I got to take Gothi Plord's place doing the main bloat to Lord Frere. And before I tell the funny part, I will say that I had people come up to me and say that was their first bloat and they loved it, et cetera, et cetera. But the best part was the Altera Gothi had eaten some bad Chinese food or some such. And he looked kind of angry sitting in the corner after the bloat. So I said, "Was my bloat all right, sir?" And he said, "No, it made me sick." So that was a profound impact, I think. I've never had anybody besides him tell me that my bloat made them sick.
Wow. All right. See what you did there. Yeah, no, that was unfortunate. I think that cheap and abundant Asian soul food fusion cuisine in small towns in the rural South might not always be a best bet. But I went to this location a couple of times just to make sure, and didn't always win those endeavors. So Dean bought us 6 coffees, and I appreciate the generosity. That's a $30 donation. Thank you for it. He says, "Good evening. I know the AFA has some Evola fans, as am I. Do any of you have any thoughts on his Against the Neo-Pagans essay? I think the AFA meets and counters his criticisms, but I could see an essay like that being a stumbling block to potential members. Has anyone on this call read that essay? By a show of hands. I see no hands, so I'm going to take this one. I am a big Evola fan. But I think we, owe it to ourselves, and one of our virtues is truth. So I think that even if you're a fan of a thinker, you need to be able to critically analyze why they think what they think. And there's a lot of different angles on this. First, I absolutely agree with tons of that essay. That's why I would never describe myself as a neo-pagan. People that do that it's one of those little, if you're new to, I guess, this sphere of stuff, it can be really confusing because there's subtle word differences that have a lot of in-group implication, but if you're just coming in, you may not know the difference of. But most people who consider themselves pagans, and I say this is entirely here in the United States. I'm sure it translates really different other places. By the literal definition, of course, we're pagan. But I think most of the conception of that revolves around people who I don't think this is entirely fair, but I do think we're talking in generalizations. And I think when you use labels, it invites generalization. A lot of the time, not necessarily coming from the most serious place. a lot of the time in this day and age, when someone identifies as that, it's a reaction to something else as opposed to a positively formed identity. It's all the things they're not or the things they're reacting against as opposed to the things they are. And I think that there's a lot of silliness and a lot of excuse for either not having to behave to a standard or to, let their freak flag fly, as the kids would say, and be degenerate. I think that's very often what you encounter. And I think it's something that you encountered to a degree in Evela's day as well. So I think a lot of the LARPy nonsense, and he would have used a very different term for that, but I think with a similar theme, is insincere and of little value from a traditional, in the term that, Evela would have used, the school of tradition value. But one of the, when I think about his writing on that, he makes an interesting point about initiation, and as if once something's broken, it can't be reforged. And I think that's a thing, there was a really big current of thought, certainly in Evela's day, and I think it persists in some circles, of you only have legitimacy if there's like an unbroken lineage since some ancient time. And I don't think that's always, well thought out or well put together, because we falsely deify something that's really old. And I don't think we take into account how really old is. Our gods created our folk as our folk. The line of our folk is, thousands of years old. I think when people look for an unbroken lineage, they look for something hundreds of years old, but just so far in the way back that it's cool. I also logically think there's a fallacy that, everything starts somewhere. I don't think a religious tradition is more valid if it starts today than if it starts 100 years ago, than if it starts 100 years from now, because it was day one for every religious tradition at one point. And those come at various points in time. And I think it's a fallacy of, your historical perspective. There's something to be said for longevity, absolutely, but everything's got to start somewhere. And that doesn't negate truth. But something that I've always seen as a kind of a symbol of the rebirth of Asatru in the middle of last century, as the reforging of the sword, the taking the pieces of something ancient and divine that has been shattered for whatever cause, and reforging it into something stronger. And that's a tradition that's, well entrenched in our legend. They talk about that extensive, or this, you can find the story in a very complete version in the Volsung saga. But I've always looked at that as, kind of how I see the reforging of the sword of Asatru with the awakening of our founder, Steve McNallen. And it connects to the ancient lineage because our gods are real. Something with Evela, and I think this has to do with time and place. When you read his essays before the Second World War and you read his books that were, earlier in his career, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of optimism, there's a lot of building. And then once he watches, currents that he was very passionate about and a world that had looked so rosy to him crumble all around him, and as he himself became paralyzed, it crushed a lot of that hope. So he his life became one of theory and ideas and not one of practice. Some of that was limited by his physical situation, and some of that was limited by, what he had access to. There wasn't a valid, Asatru, there wasn't an Asatru Folk Assembly for him to fairly evaluate at the time, or for him to come and take part in. And I think that from his perspective, the stuff he wrote made a lot of sense, but there wasn't a lot of practice to it. And the other thing is, he had a very dismissive attitude of devotional religion, and his idea of the divine was so very impersonal and so very isolated. And I think I think you make a mistake when you confuse religion for philosophy, or if you look at religious rites as just symbols of some internal transformation process. And I think that's something that Evola had a tendency to default to. The idea of interacting with real gods in a devotional relationship and in the gift cycle in a, simple, warm-hearted way was really foreign to the schools that I think Evola came to his philosophical thought through. But yeah, I love the work that he did. What I'd invite anybody to do, and what I would invite the Baron to do were he here, would be to come out and to open himself up to experience and see what happens. See what happens. If he were here today, I would love to have him at an event, or to, participate in any of our ritual. And I think it would give him an opportunity that he didn't have in his lifetime. And I wish he had that opportunity. And I appreciate you guys sitting by. I know a lot of the questions have gone to the Gothar. I appreciate this question is specifically aimed at our folk builders. Question for folk builders Tracy and Jordan. Are there any specific tasks or challenges unique to the district that you serve?
Well, I'm not sure if it's unique to the district, but I think that one of the challenges that the folk face, and one of the reasons why having a Hof has made things so much better, is basically the loneliness that we probably have, in our mundane life out here, because, it's just, I keep thinking about it, how I wouldn't have necessarily even met some of these people that are a big part of my life. That I would have never even known them. We didn't walk, the same path in life. Maybe they lived 6 hours away, and there's just like so much distance between everyone. And when we get to go out to the Hof, it's like we kind of come together. We kind of forget about this real world, and we're there together, and it's kind of like a family reunion every time. I'm not sure if loneliness is just unique to our Hof or our area, but I do think that maintaining like healthy relationships and everyone's mental well-being is probably pretty important. And I think that's kind of what we get from going, out to the Hof. I'm not sure if I answered that question at all.
Well, I kind of want to add to that also is kind of to the point that we made earlier about the breadth of our district. And more on that we have a lot of members in the eastern part of our district, Florida, Georgia, Alabama. And then it's like we have sort of a gap right now between us over here in the east and then Texas over there. And I have the opportunity to meet a lot of people from Florida, a lot of people from Georgia. I've hosted moots in Alabama before as well, but I just don't get to see our folk from Texas as often. So it's important when I'm able to reach out to them. I mean, at least over phone calls, texts, whatever it is on a more regular basis, but just that distance for sure. I know other districts will deal with that, but for me, at least, that's one issue.
Absolutely. So, Lane, and I wanted to ask this earlier in the show, but we don't have any questions currently in the in the line over here. Could you tell folks a little bit about, I don't know, the story of the development of AFA culture in Florida there, how we came, from where we started to having Njörðshof there?
Well, I was fortunate that one of the first events I went to, you actually attended. It was, I believe that was Charming of the Plow at Washington Park. But you moved shortly thereafter, and it became a little less optimistic. A lot of just people sitting around an apartment complaining about their life. There was no positivity, and I think that was the thing that we really needed to change. Is we had to be for something, not just oh, woe is me. Life is hard. Things aren't working the way I want them to. But to get together and look to the future and make changes in ourselves and build ourselves up and build each other up to make our lives better, not to just wallow in the hard times, but to forge, as our motto says, harsh winds make strong wood, and we become very strong here in Florida.
So Washington Park, was that up by the Fairchild Oak there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that spot.
It was amazing. We had a deer come through. It was a
I remember that exact.
Yeah.
I remember that exact event because you got a picture of it crossing the path.
Mm-hmm.
That was really neat. That's one of the special things about Florida, and something that we have at least a couple. One by the entryway that's just really beautiful. They got the live oaks down there, and they're just such majestic trees. That one that we would do, the ritual that Lane was talking about, we'd meet at regularly when I was down in Florida, the Fairchild Oak there. It's, they were guessing it's, like 2,000 years old or something absurd. They are such old trees, and they'll have these limbs that will dip down sometimes into the earth and popping back out because they're so old, and they are hanging with that Spanish moss, and they're just beautiful. And anybody who hasn't been to Njörðshof, they've got some really beautiful scenery there, and some of their trees are just amazing. Anybody else got any questions this evening? Questions are running dry over in the comments section. So, can you talk about, so Florida's membership has been really interesting because it's grown for a long time, and it's spread out. Florida is a really interesting state because there's so many different kinds of Florida. There's northern Cuba, and there's, various kind of folks from the New York area that end up populating a lot of the coast. But then you got a lot of old South, crackers and people have been there for a long time in the middle of the state and up further north. It's an interesting convergence of stuff. Tracy, you're a little bit further south. How is what's that like, folk building in the center of the state and dealing with members in, I guess, the southern half of Florida?
Well, see, one of the things that you have to try to remember is that for someone who maybe lives like in Miami, I think it would take them about 5.5 hours to get to the Hof. So it is quite a big state. I live north of Orlando, and when we have a pretty good sized membership, kind of centrally located, and this is Orlando kind of area, so there's a lot of people who like to eat eat out at restaurants, and so we do find plenty of things to do like that. But what was the question again?
Oh no, you're doing it. I was trying to say
Okay.
there's a different character in different parts of Florida, and the further east you go, as I've found, people seem to have different understandings of time. Like, it's nothing out west to drive a number of hours because everything's spread out as far as it is. The further east you get, like you mentioned, 5.5 hours, and I think that's extremely doable, certainly a few times a year at the very least. But I know some members that's kind of a long haul, and you're, shoring up the southern half of the state because, I don't think we have many leaders south of you. I think we've got a couple that are kind of parallel to you. But yeah, just kind of what your experience is folk building in Central Florida.
We've had some Tampa area moots, and I think what it is that when people don't expect to have a moot in that area, they may not have been accustomed to actually coming out, and they might be more like isolated, like I said, like and not really kind of adventurous enough to actually even show up, because that's still a couple hours away even from me, even though some people in the Tampa area still sometimes do make it out to the Hof. But a lot of the moots and people that I see are pretty much, it could be from the east or the west coast across the board, but we either meet up for like a kind of a meal type gathering, or I've had a moot at Halloween Horror Nights before. Actually, was it Halloween Horror Nights? It was the other one, Hollow Scream. We have like theme parks we could go to. There's actually like tons of state parks that people could have moots at, and a lot of things that you could really do out in this area. It's not all just about bars. We can go and do things, out in nature. The only problem is it's so hot outside that most people can't stand it. But it's really nice getting together with the people in this area, and especially people, sometimes do take their vacations down here from other districts, and then we do sometimes, host moots and have them get to interact with some of the members that are around here too. So that's always nice as well. All in all, it's a very rewarding experience, and I find joy in, and it makes me really happy that I get to do that.
Good deal. So a question for the Gothar, and I will go last. How would you like us to use the Trulamau to guide our practices and understanding of Asatru today, and in what ways do you see its influence shaping the future of our faith? Trent.
I think if I were to choose how for the members to use it, I would say read it, refer back to it when you have questions. I think something that'll be really helpful is the part kind of near the beginning where it talks about how we use the Old Norse nomenclature for things as often as possible, just to sort of build a kind of cohesion. And so that, as well as just kind of understanding as much AFA doctrine as possible. The more members and leaders, especially that understand that, the more it will make us a force to be reckoned with more than we already are in the future. And I think, of course, as we go into the future and we release more documents similar to that and kind of following that one's footsteps, it will really bind us to this faith in a way that will just make a lot of things easier for us, make a lot of things more clear for new people, rather than, you know, the kind of sometimes jumbled mess we might have where people are hailing Odin by 8 or 9 different names in different Germanic languages and things like that. It'll just really solidify things. It'll make us look more professional, and it'll just make this all so much more relatable to a lot of newer people. So, and that's just the start of it, really.
Same question, Lane.
Yeah, I think its biggest impact is it's going to be a touchstone. This is going to be something that allows us to all speak in the same language, to understand one another, to have a foundation to build upon. I think that this is a very important step in our evolution and the growth of our faith.
Bodie.
Same question. Sorry, I was a little bit
Random
distracted.
question. Pick up a question.
Random question. I think it's like my brother Gothi's just said. I think it's a very good resource for folks. It's something that we have been sorely lacking for a long time, and we recognize that lack. We were just trying to figure out how, to particularly, tackle this task and get it accomplished. I know that the Asatru Gothi was very concerned with its publication and coming forth and development, and it really is going to be, as Gothi Lane said, it's really going to be one of those things that we point to in the future as, that's when we, pardon the pun, that's when we turned a page and, really kind of accelerated our growth, because we have a lot of folks who are adults who don't have the education and experience in the lore and the way Asatru works yet. So this is a very good step in that direction and closing that gap of not having that knowledge.
Yeah, I'm first, thank you guys for your thoughts on that. And Raven, thank you for asking the question. Most of the things in that document, and I certainly had help with it, but it was something that I wanted to do and know was needed for a very long time. And it was really important to me to get that done and out there. And most of, you'll notice most of the things in it aren't, they aren't things that, someone who's been around this for any amount of time would be, shocked by, or that are greatly different. But what's always been a struggle for us is a place to start and a willingness to say, this is this and that's that. There's been such a hodgepodge of, well, kind of this, but sort of that, and it's a natural thing. And I've been as guilty at different times in my life in Asatru as anybody else, as kind of hemming and hawing and not really knowing where to start. And there's so many different facets to our faith to try to explain to somebody who comes in with very little familiarity. I can't think of an analogous situation that most of us are familiar with. A lot of people are very aware of Christianity, very aware of many of the I guess those things. So if you're a sect or a version of that, it's very, you have a common understanding of a starting point, and then you can work from there. With Asatru, there's so many different places to start, and so many different, well, some people do this, and some other people think this, and sometimes we say this, and sometimes we do that. And that diversity is not our strength. So unifying what we do, what we think, what we believe in a in a common way to start and to build upon provides a lot of clarity. Going forward, I think that when we get bogged, so one of the details to the question was, what ways we see it shaping the future, and how we want it to guide the practices and understanding of folks. It to be something to hearken back to. There's a lot of different ways that are right to do a lot of things. But this is kind of a way to check back in and like, is it congruent with this? This is the core fundamental principles of our religion, and how the AFA practices Asatru is what we're doing in harmony with that. If it's not, let's bring it in and make it in harmony with it, and let that be a guidepost to check things against, to make sure that they're harmonious, and to understand the practice of, your brothers and sisters in the Asatru Folk Assembly. When you find yourself, that's our point of commonality to work from. And everybody for a very long time in modern Asatru has been at a phase of becoming or figuring out or wondering what if, and we're past that phase now. Now we have a direction, we have a course, and we're following that course. We have a foundation, and we're acknowledging it, we're owning it, and we're building upon it. And so this is kind of the fundamental building blocks that can direct the flow of that in the future. As I mentioned, you asked how this is going to shape things in the future, or how we'd like it to. But I'd like it to serve as a foundation, as something to build upon. Something that's plagued modern Asatru for a long time is a lack of confidence to set roots and move forward and build for it. And then a variety of things that have made a consistent cycle of, okay, this is going to sound stupid to some people. Some people may get it. I hope it's beneficial, but it's something that comes to mind, and something to put it out there. My cousins and I, and jokingly and kind of joking at ourselves, would talk about playing bass. So we'd get all our action figures and all our little army men and stuff, and we would build these elaborate fortifications, and we build all this stuff because we're going to have this, it's going to be epic, all of my toys versus all of your toys, and it's going to be awesome. And so we'd spend forever setting it up, but by the time we got it all set up, it's bedtime, and we never got to have the big, the big thing we were planning with it, because we spent all the time endlessly pondering the what ifs instead of actually getting to the doing. And I think that modern Asatru spent a lot of time endlessly going over the what ifs, and then every new person wants to start back from square one, and in doing so, never make progress. We're past that stage. It's not just about becoming, it's about being and doing Asatru. And so we're at a stage where we've been bequeathed a responsibility and a legacy to build upon and to move forward, and really nice foundations to step forward on. Our gods have blessed us with a certain amount of success and insight, and continue to do so as long as we stay the course and have the piety to listen to their instruction to the best of our ability. And I think that this is a foundation for us to build upon and to guide our direction forward with it. Dean donated, well, he bought us a coffee, which is a $5 donation. We appreciate that. So I know this question is way early, but are there dates picked out for Charming of the Plow next year? Any of y'all? Show of hands. Does anybody know when it's going to be? Trent says he knows when it's going to be. When's it going to be, Trent?
February 21st through the 23rd.
Checking the orthodoxy of Trent's statement.
It checks out to me, sir.
Sounds good. Looks like that's the plan. Mark your calendars now. Make your plans. Get out there. Be there. Be square. I will be out there. I will try to avoid soul food Chinese fusion. I went to a different buffet this time, and the colloquial expression of it is not suitable for the broadcast, but it's got pigs on it, and it's an awesome buffet, and it's very close by, and that's where I will be going this year once again. But I was there at random when I used to live in Florida for a time. Anybody that doesn't know, I was born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska, but I moved down to Florida. I actually moved down to St. Augustine, where my wife Mandy is from, in order to secure that relationship and start building my life from that. And worked out well. It was a good gamble. We got a beautiful daughter now, and we're 7 years into a wonderful marriage. So I'm happy about that. Worked out. But a part of that, I was driving across to where our law speaker lives over in Panhandle there. And at kind of a stopping point, which turns out to be very close to our Hof. I think the buffet I'm talking about is it's in Lake City. It is delicious. And they have an amazing selection of Southern food there. The fried catfish is awesome. I can eat a shocking amount of it, and I plan to next February, and I did this past February. It is delicious, and I highly advise anybody to go there. Met up with Alan there, had to have been 2014, way back when, but always remembered the spot, and I would encourage you to do business at that location. I can't remember the name of the buffet now, so it frustrates me. I'm going to have to look it up after the show. Which brings me to another one of our questions. Has anybody eaten gator? If so, what do you think? Trent, have you eaten gator? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I had it once at a like street festival in my town here in Georgia, and this couple from Florida came up and they were selling fried gator bites, and it's a cliche, but it tastes like chicken a little bit. And it was really tender. I don't know if it's usually tender, if that's just how this couple made it. But yeah, it didn't wow me or anything. It just kind of tasted like chicken.
All right. Lane, gator, how'd you have it prepared? Do you recommend or not?
I have had gator and I rate it meh.
Fair enough.
It did not impress.
All right, Bodie, what's your gator experience as far as consumption?
Unlike my brothers, I did not find it meh or taste like chicken. It was one of the, so I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag, and I hope I don't get barred from the Hof for this, but I am a priest at Njörðshof, yet I do not like seafood. Cannot stand it. However, I know I get the thumbs down. People think I'm an alien. Why don't you eat seafood? I'm allergic to the smell, the taste, the texture, all of it. However, I have eaten more exotic things than most people have eaten that regularly eat seafood, such as alligator, rattlesnake, rabbit, things like that, which are far better. But gator tail, very, very nice. Very nice.
All right. Jordan, gator, do you recommend or not? Have you had it? And if so, how have you had it prepared?
Yeah, I had it once when I was a kid in a restaurant in New Orleans. I thought it was pretty good. I don't know. I'd probably have it again.
There you go. What about you, Tracy?
Well, it was actually one of the more ironic things that has ever happened to me, because I hadn't eaten literally any meat for like, I don't want to say how many decades, but it was multiple. And then I started with this new strange diet idea, like this just new, like a new philosophy on eating pretty much. And so I was starting to eat more seafood, and we actually had a moot that was um out by where Pam McCloskey lives. Out, I don't even remember the restaurant, but they actually had gator on that menu, and I believe that was the only time I've had it. So what did I think of it? I thought it I don't know what chicken tastes like. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Well, that is it. That is a unique view. We have some mixed views here. So I too have had gator on a couple of occasions. I think, and obviously within reason, but I think if you fry up most anything, it's delicious. I think oftentimes some things are a vehicle for the fried goodness, whether it is the thing that's being fried or not. I had gator tail. I don't know if different parts of gator are different. Gator tail is pretty good. It's all right. Again, I've had better things fried. It would probably not be my go-to for fried stuff, but it's pretty good. I think it was chickeny in a sense. I think it lacked the flaky goodness of catfish, which I prefer for my fried Southern cuisine. But yeah, it was good. Look forward to trying to have more of it at some point. If anybody was offering me some fried gator tail, I would definitely not turn it down on any occasion. But stay away from boots. That's all I got to offer on the gator situation. Another question that came up from producer Nick, as a matter of fact, why White Springs? Lane, in your view, why did we get the Hof in White Springs?
Well, a lot of things steered us in that direction. It was not our first place we looked at. It wasn't even the first place that we put an offer on, but it worked out because none of the other places had the room that Njörðshof does. There was no kitchens, nor did any of them have anywhere near the land. We would not have been able to have a place to lay our folk to rest at any of the other places we looked at. It was fortunate that the troubles that we had, because it steered us to a really perfect location.
Yeah, that's something I don't think people necessarily anticipate. I know I didn't. When we've gone through and I was a part of getting Njörðshof, but a much smaller part. That was a find between Githia Sheila McNallen and Gothi Thorgren Odin, who recently passed. They were working with some folks in the area there as to where to get, what to get. A lot of stuff went into it, but my involvement at the time was very peripheral. I was there. I happened to be there because we found what became Njörðshof. We actually looked at it the Sunday right after a midsummer. So I was out there for midsummer, but I was further away, and my role in the Asatru Folk Assembly was, less significant than it currently is at the time. But when I became All Harrier Gothi, it was very important to me to keep up the mission of getting Hofs. And so, going into them, you always have an expectation. And I think it's not reasonable to do this and not have a lot of expectation build up of, what you want to do. But you got to be flexible. There's a number of things that come into play, as I've learned. Finding, you have an idea in your mind of a building that you want. and everything the building needs to have. But then you're like, but what does the property need to have? And where does the property need to be? Okay. Yeah, but what kind of price point can we manage? What's realistic? And then you have all of the challenges that come in, between here and there. How long has it been on the market? Can we get funding fast enough? Can we get it figured out and make stuff work? Is the, seller going to work stuff? When we do the inspection, is it going to come back with something that really changes the deal on whether it's a good deal or not? So as Lane mentioned, we had a number of properties. We had one that we were very serious on, really in the, making an offer and trying to get it approved. We even tried to get a traditional lending situation from a bank that at the last minute they pulled out of. We ended up not being able to make that work. There's a certain factor to where you got to do the very best you can and, go where the gods take you in a certain way. And looking back on it, I couldn't really imagine this being any other place. It's amazing where it is. But, the dream takes a lot of different shapes before you get there. Initially, we had some options on where we were going to do this Hof. It needed to be a state that was coastal. Getting it on the beach was, that would be awesome, but it wasn't really something that was a super reality. We had one spot we looked at that was, right across the street from the water, and that just proved to not really be an option. But getting it in a state that had coastline was important. I think the very serious front runners were Washington State and Florida. We'd also looked up in the Northeast a little bit, and we had looked at Texas. There was a spot in between Houston and Galveston that was a really nice idea for it too. So there's a lot of things that went into play looking, but one of the big things that made it work where it did was, as I said at the top of the show, was Lane and his kindred and the amount of work they were putting in, the infrastructure and the devotion that they had established where they were at for us to build around. And that was a huge factor in making that happen. And looking around, it just so happened, White Springs was a really inviting idea. And it turns out one of the most foundational moots that got some of the momentum in that part of the South going for the AFA way back when took place, a stone's throw from the Hof, which is really kind of cool. That was my wife's first AFA moot she'd ever been to. She had met our law speaker, Alan, there at that moot. And it was right there in the same town. And, that didn't factor into our decision, but it was a really, fortuitous synchronicity. It was really the working of earth and that tapestry. And it's right where it should be. I love where our Hof is. It's an amazing spot. And what we don't ever want to do is, and that's the thing, it's frustrating. We want to, once we make a commitment to one of our gods that we're going to get them a Hof somewhere, and I want to do everything I can to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen fast enough or doesn't happen in the way that I envision, I feel bad. Like this is a responsibility and I don't want to mess it up. So all we can do is the very best that we can and make sure that if we don't get it, it's not because of any of our fumbling. And from there, be willing to, and this is something that I recall asking very specifically at the altar, and I've done this, with our Hofs, is for the help of the God involved, the help of Njörður in this case, to help get us the Hof that he wants, help guide us to a spot that would make him happy, that he would approve of. And it's really special how those things all work together to get us something really special. I think that happened in this case, certainly. Have you considered doing online services on YouTube to reach members? So, yes, and this was asked by Odin's Beard. We have considered that, and there's a couple of thoughts on it. We know that we have folks that are isolated, and we know that we have members that are at a great distance sometimes. And we want to make sure the spiritual needs of those members get met. But we also don't ever want to cheapen the ritual or the purpose behind it or the religious experience of it. And it's not something that you can do at distance in the same way. And what I've seen with other groups of people that wanted to do online rituals, very quickly, all of their rituals became online rituals because it's just easier to kind of literally phone it in that instance. We would love to engage with all of our members online, on video calls, on conference calls. We'd love to build relationships with them that way and talk them through spiritual things and spiritual practices. But it's really important to us that our rituals are done in the real world with real connection. And we don't want that not to be the case. Now, we can synchronize. We can do a ritual here at the same time. So I can do a ritual here in Nevada and synchronize it with these people that you see on this show today in Florida, in Georgia, in wherever Jordan's at. I apologize. He's also in Georgia. But we can do that and make that work to synchronize and do them simultaneously. And I think there's something valuable there. But we don't want to do the online ritual. And I know that for someone who's very isolated, that might be disheartening. But no, I have no idea who Odin's Beard is, but if you're a member, please reach out to any of our folk builders, or please reach out to me, because I want to find you people to do ritual with that are near you. I want to do everything I can to make that happen for you. Doing it online it's just not the right thing to do. But I want to help you experience that in your life. And if you reach out to us, we will figure something out to where you can experience it, because it's important. Question for folk builders. Haha, they didn't ask you, Gothar. So, Jordan, who makes the best meals at Njörðshof? Go.
Oh, you cannot put me in that position.
I just did.
You're gonna make me pick a favorite, and I can't do it.
It's my show.
Can I pick a favorite meal and the person that's attached to? I think I'll go with that. So the famous breakfast grits at Njörðshof from Mike Joyner. That's got to be my favorite meal that I've personally had.
Fair enough. Tracy, favorite, who makes the best meals?
Well, I think what's really nice about Njörðshof is that we kind of collaborate on the meals. And so, like, currently what we have is a lot of participation, because a lot of the ladies and gentlemen that come, because even the men like to bring their delicious offerings for us. And they kind of create a menu, and they all collaborate. And I've even brought a salad. I'm not a big cook, but I've even done this myself. And we end up with some of the most delicious, large arrays of really fantastic food, especially the last few months for these, because when we provide these foods for these rituals, it's a really important part of the experience, because I think a lot of these holy days are based off of, there's always a meal involved when it comes to it. So it's actually like really important for us to bond. And so it's really nice that, I don't want to name names, it's all of them. They all provide really great food and they take, turns and they share the load. And it's just really wonderful to see it all happen and take place.
So the Asatru Folk Assembly, we don't believe in equality.
Okay.
Is there a name that tops your list of who makes the best meals?
Okay, let's see. I have to have a name. My favorite.
Describe the person.
Okay, I have a favorite of each thing because,
Okay.
Kaylee's Yule cookies were fantastic. But if we're talking about cookies, we know Gatha Plord's famous cookies. She has a couple different ones. Those are delicious.
They really are. I can attest to that.
Yeah. I shouldn't have to name them, but we know what they're called. The white privilege cookies. What else do we have? She has a whole bunch of really good cookies, actually.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most wonderful desserts that Rachel Vachon made was the eclair cake, the eclair pie or the eclair cake. That one, I just really like the desserts. I like all of it, actually. Pam's made some of the. Okay, for one thing, the best meal of all time, the best Hof event food was the dedication. And we had a lot of help from, I believe, Pam McCloskey and even Mike and Katie Joyner. But there was also help with Kaylee Watkins and a lot of different. I'm sure Madison was helping too. Not me as much, but there's a lot of help in that situation too. So we have a lot of very good meals. If anyone who comes to Njörðshof, I can guarantee you, I've been to all the Hofs. I think it's going to be more delicious than all the other Hofs. Just so you know.
Because we are the best Hof.
But I love you all, even at the other Hofs. I'm just saying.
So Raven wants to know, are the AFA flyers that members can print and spread on our own locally? No, but it's shameful that there's not. It's something that we've wanted to do, needed to do, and not done as of yet, and we really need to. So there are some in the works. I want to make that happen for you. I don't know who you are with, with your moniker, but reach out to me privately and let's make that happen. It's a priority for me to get some flyers. I know a lot of people have asked for them. I do think we have some stuff, but we need to fix that. So get with me and let's do that.
It's okay. I'll tell you who it is afterwards.
Okay, cool. You can always send it to me over on the side. Something we do. All right. So next up, folk builders. Any cool or particularly meaningful stories of recruiting people to the AFA? Jordan, cool or meaningful stories about AFA recruitment?
This one's not mine particularly, but it's one that had happened where we had a member who's no longer with the AFA that we had been reaching out, trying to get back into contact with them. Turns out that phone number was not theirs anymore, but the person was attached to that phone number was someone who was Asatru and was looking for a group for such a long time. But what are the odds of just this person getting this phone number from another former member that just was Asatru and looking for a group of people to be with? And that was a very weird moment in the proper sense of the term.
Yeah, that I remember that story, and it's really special that happened. The odds are astronomical.
I can't even conceive of the odds.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, and I appreciate you sharing that. Tracy, do you have any meaningful or interesting stories in AFA recruitment?
Well, one of the things about, I guess I'm either so busy with just work and the AFA. I don't know. I feel like I don't really know a lot of people that I just like want to like recruit in the way that it sounds. Like I'm not just trying to convert people and bring them into the AFA. But there has been a lot of members, over the years, and sometimes when some of them leave, it has been, kind of heartbreaking and difficult, but I do find it really nice. Like one that I'm thinking of who came back to the AFA, and it's just I don't want to say everyone's name, but it's just really nice when they say, like, they reach out to you and it's like you're part of the reason why they came back. It really does make for very special memories and stories. And, then you get to share more memories with their family. And, since we all do consider each other family, it is kind of nice when some of these members might go and then come back and they think of you. And that's part of the reason why they came back.
So if you're not out there trying to just increase the AFA membership and bring people to AFA, then you step up the game, Tracy. But I will say this. No, I know what you meant. I'm just being silly. But I mean this a lot. Over the years, for a variety of reasons, you have people that, leave. And, like I said, it literally a big variety of reasons. It's really beautiful when those people come back. And some of our very best members have left for one reason or another and seen a different perspective of, the grass is always greener until you get there, and then maybe you see things from the outside looking in. When those people come home, it's a really, really nice feeling. And yeah, I'll certainly say that. We got a couple of people I just want to acknowledge over in the chat. All right, so you guys got to get some easier to pronounce names so that I can properly acknowledge you without sounding silly. Regitius, that's not the way your name is meant to be pronounced, so I apologize. But he wanted to say hi and that it's inspiring what we're doing, along with the rest of the Asatru Folk Assembly. I appreciate you saying so, and I appreciate you being here and joining us tonight. And I apologize for butchering your name. And Baja Volvo, perhaps, is a lurker and just wanted to say hello. Howdy. Glad you're joining us tonight. And in case you didn't see it, Sierra, and you're paying attention, Trent said that your food was awesome when he was out at Njörðshof. And yeah, you make some good stuff. Your the pasta salad thing at Yule, or at not Yule, I'm sorry, Midsummer this year was awesome. A lot of us were talking about it. I know that I think I had seconds, but I loaded up pretty heavy on it. Sierra can make some good stuff. Oh, and Clisty's joining us tonight. Good to see you on here. Glad to see you joining us. So, what plans are there for Njörðshof for the future? Trent.
We don't have anything too grand planned for it. It was when we purchased the building, it was already in pretty great shape. It recently got a paint job. That's like, the most exciting thing that's happened to the building. As far as the land, we've got our cemetery in the back. We've already got a couple of our folk interred there, and we plan to kind of keep that area looking nice. I believe Githya Plord was talking about planting some flowers in the area, like sunflowers and orange blossoms, if I'm not mistaken. Eventually we're going to have to do something about boots, I would think. Other than that, we just plan to keep growing and keep making our events better and better.
Make special clothes for him, or like,
I don't know, man. I'm from Georgia, not Florida. Gators get, they have
he's
like
not a problem. He's our gator.
We'll see. We'll see.
He's obviously a baby though, because he's probably going to end up like 8 feet long.
That's insane. So that's what I'm talking about. We'll see what happens.
But we could have a gator tail Hof meal.
If he runs afoul, if he's a cool gator, then he can look after things.
We'll see what happens.
We're just joking.
He will also be in charge in the future of folk builder discipline. So there's that.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of options.
I don't know that we're
So
free to really do anything to him or even relocate.
So you
him.
two mind your P's and Q's and all the other apprentices, because otherwise you have to go talk with Boots. So
Boots talks with his teeth. So this is as good a time as any. Plans for Njörðshof. We plan to pay off Njörðshof. You guys have been awesome on that so far, but I'm going to make a plug right now anyway, because it's important to do so. So we have a remaining balance of $79,401 on our loans. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but we've already paid off $165,599. So we've made tremendous progress towards that goal. We have made tremendous progress this year towards that goal. Producer Nick might know if I'm mistaken on it, but we were still owing more than 100,000 on it at the beginning of the year, I believe, if not more. We've made a lot of progress really quick. If you guys, factor in the initial cost was 245, we've done very, very well. So the sooner we pay that off, the sooner we can start moving towards making Fourth Hof happen. I would encourage anybody who can to please donate if you are able, and we will continue to bring this total down and move towards paying it off. In just 2 years, we've been able to knock out almost 68% of the debt that we've incurred over it. So that's fantastic. That's a huge amount in a short amount of time. But we appreciate your help in getting a little bit more right now. If every AFA member donated $104.50 thereabout, we would have this thing paid off immediately. We'd pay it off tonight. So yeah, if you're able, we would love to have your help with it. Figure this is a good time to plug it. So therefore I'm doing it. And that is absolutely a plan. A lot of the other plans on cosmetic things or other stuff with the Hof are waiting on the payoff of it. Because until it's paid off, unless it's an immediate thing that's necessary, it's important that we take care of that debt first. But yeah, sky's the limit on it. We've got a lot of land there, a lot of things that we'd like to do with it, a lot of ways that we'd like to beautify the things that we have. But it's already a really nice space. As Lane mentioned earlier, it wasn't like it sat derelict for a long time. A number of our Hofs did and really needed a lot of love when we got there. This one was, I would say, more turnkey than any of our previous ones. So that's really nice. So our next question is interesting. Would there ever be any Hofs opened outside of the States? Absolutely, there would be. I say that 1,000% sure. Trouble is when, where, and how, because we would love to do that. There's nothing stopping us right now from doing that conceptually. The issue comes with we need a few things. So there was a time where the biggest hurdle was being able to, how could we possibly get enough money to get a Hof? And that's no longer the big concern. But what is a concern is when we get a Hof, we make a commitment. When we get a Hof, we are building a home in Midgard for one of our gods. We're giving them something very special, and we're making a commitment to maintain it. So it's not just getting a Hof, but it's taking care of that Hof and being good stewards of it in the long term, which means we need membership in the area that we can trust to take care of it. We need leaders in the area that we can trust to build and manage our folk there and host rituals and perform all of the sacred services that are necessary for a temple to one of our gods. So that's what we're waiting on in some of these international locations. There was a time when we were seriously looking at Sweden. We had a very vibrant membership there. And then when the whole world seemed to shut down for COVID, unfortunately, we lost some momentum there. So we would love to get that back. We still have quite a few members over in Sweden. I'd say that's the first most likely spot. But truly, wherever if you're listening to this broadcast and you're outside of the United States, there's nothing stopping you guys from having a Hof there. Get together, make stuff happen, dive in and really try to make it happen. And we will work with you and we will do the very best we can to help you build. And if you build and you got something going there, we would love to have an international Hof. We will in the future, 100% sure of it, but I can't tell you when. And the more we get help from local people to make that happen, the closer we get to knowing, when that might be. Have any of you guys had... Okay, this is something I think that we should mention. And this is the second of our Hofs that we now have loved ones of ours, their remains interred at. Do you guys want to talk about that at all? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but Tracy, would you like to talk about that?
Well, like what part of it?
You know what part of it? We've got two people that are special to us that are their remains are interred at our Hof, and I don't think it's something that maybe folks are aware of. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great. And if not, somebody else can. That's fine also.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be a bigger cemetery. Right now we just have two people laid to rest at Njörðshof, and one of them is my mother, and she passed away in November, so we're getting close to a year, I guess. And I just right away felt like she belonged at Njörðshof. So, you know, it wasn't a difficult process, and the ceremony was beautiful. Gothi Mayo helped out with that. It was very special. And it was just a very nice way to lay her to rest with, you know, everyone, you know, all my family and friends, you know, because it was just like very meaningful for me, especially. And, you know, I know my family really appreciated it as well. So it's always, you know, for people who might maybe they don't have their will in place or anything, but it's something you could think about if that's what you might want to do in the future with yourself or someone in your family.
Yeah, that's so I'm thank you for a couple of things, Tracy. Thank you for, you know, telling folks about that, but also thank you for entrusting your mom's remains with us at one of our hofs. That's another thing that has a lot of implications spiritually. So I mentioned that we have two that have, you know, our loved ones at them, but that's not really the whole story. So in very short succession at Njörðshof, we've added two more to our cemetery. So we have three folks whose remains are in our cemetery at Njörðshof. We have one gentleman that we inherited at Fourth Hof, and we've tried to do our best to beautify and care for his grave and to honor him when we're there. And it's, you know, we stand ready for any of our people that want to have their remains interred at that Hof. We're ready for that at Baldershof as well, should that occur. At Njörðshof, we have a member, and then we have a member's mother. And at Sigerheim, we inherited a graveyard with 13 people already interred there. All right. Good night, Aubrey. I love you. Anyways, so we had 13 there, and then I buried my mom's ashes there as well. So having the remains of our folk and our loved ones at these holy places really enhances the power of the place. And more than that, it speaks to the commitment I talked about earlier. Once we get a Hof, we're not going anywhere. That's holy ground for us, and not something that we're willing to part with easily. Once it's our space and we put our loved ones in the ground there, that's, you know, that's ours. So we need to maintain it and take care of it into the future. And we have to be well prepared for that. So that's a big step too, that we have people that, you know, every year we have lots and lots of babies that are welcomed in to our Asatru Folk Assembly that we perform Asuvatni for, which is our baby naming ceremony. We have marriages in the AFA. And we see our folk all the way through. We help them, we care for them, and then we have a place so that they're with us eternally when they pass away. So the timelessness of the institution that is the Asatru Folk Assembly is extremely important to us. And that factors into all of our decisions on how we do what we do, because we have a tremendous responsibility. And so it's really important when we make a decision on a Hof. And that kind of all factors in. Another couple things over on the side. if there is a deviled eggs competition, you guys need to mail me one or several because they're delicious. All right. Looks like we've got. So here's another thing, and I suppose this is the time, and I brought down the mood and didn't mean to, but I want to mention this because it's really important. Get your will done. So I have pushed this a lot, and I will continue to do so. Make a will. We have found a resource. If you are in the United States and several other places, get your will done. DoYourOwnWill.com. It's legit. Our law speakers looked it over. It's legally binding. It's a completely legitimate deal. It's free. There is no reason and no excuse not to have your will done, no matter how old you are. Stuff happens. Get your will done. And once you have it done, get 2 notarized copies, one for however you're doing with you, but send an original notarized copy to our law speaker, Alan Turnage, so we can make sure you get what you want as far as the treatment of your remains and the, settling of your final affairs. There's no ulterior motive. There's nothing sketchy. This is legit. It's legally binding. Our law speaker is an actual attorney. We want to help you have what you want done. I've known a number of our folk. I've known some who are old men with terminal diseases that didn't have their stuff taken care of. And I've known a lot of young folks who didn't imagine something would happen to them, that didn't get what they wanted when they passed because they did not have a will, or if they did not have it with someone who could make sure that their wishes were advocated for. And we want that for all of you. So do this, send it to Alan, make sure it happens. We had one of our members very much on the team, everything, he's all on board, made his wishes really clear. Well, his parents had converted to Judaism, and his remains now rest in a Jewish cemetery. And I know that's very askew from what he would have wanted, but unfortunately, he didn't have a will taken care of. So get your will done. I say that, I promise you, I used this service to get my will done, and I had it with Alan. It's not something I'd ask you to do if I wasn't willing to do it myself. With that is the questions. Nick claims he's done it too. I'll have to check with our law speaker and make sure he has it registered with him. No, good. I'm glad you've done that. He claims Alan has a copy. We'll see. No, Nick, that's awesome. I'm glad that you did. I wish more people would, because it's far fewer than I would like. No, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Thank you guys, even more for taking care of our sacred Hof that you guys are stewards of, and I appreciate all that you do. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being awesome. Also, thank you to our audience. You guys are fantastic. It's been a nice time sharing it with you this evening. Join us next week as Svan and I will continue our Edda study, and I think we're going over the Volunderskvida, so the lay of Voland. We'll be doing that a week from today, so we'd love to see you there. If you can get out to Freyr's Harvest Feast, it's going to be fantastic. I am looking forward to it. It's going to be a really cool thing for our folk up in Montana. If you can make it there, it's awesome. We have one guy I know coming in from North Carolina. So we got people from far afield. You don't just have to be in the Pacific Northwest to make it there. But yeah, we'd love to see you guys there if you can get there. If not, I'll talk to you. Well, suppose I still got time, so I'll talk to you all next week. Until then, hail the Aesir, hail the folk, hail the AFA. And remember, victory never sleeps.